So there's been a lot of talk recently about Beyoncé and Jay-Z. A whole storm of public allegations has put the power couple under a pretty intense microscope. Today, we're going to break it all down, unpacking these stories about loyalty, business ethics, and what it really means to be a billionaire icon. And it all really kicked off with a pretty heartbreaking quote from Kulie. She's the daughter of Terry Kulie, who was a huge part of Beyoncé's team for decades. This one statement just opened up a huge debate about the human cost of building a global entertainment empire. All right, let's dive in. Here's our roadmap for how we're going to break this all down. We'll start with the manager's story that got everyone talking. Then we'll zoom out and see how it stacks up against others in the music biz. After that, we'll get into some allegations against Beyoncé's fashion line, switch gears to some separate claims about Jay-Z, and then try to connect all the dots to ask some bigger questions about power. Right, so first up, let's get into the story that really sparked this whole conversation. The family of Terry Kulie, who was Beyoncé's stage and production manager for more than 20 years, came forward with some really serious claims about how his career came to an end. I mean, Terry Kulie's journey with Beyoncé goes way, way back to the Destiny's Child days. For over 2 decades, he was apparently the guy behind the scenes making her incredible stage shows happen. But according to his family, after all that dedication, he was suddenly let go, leaving him unemployed. And this number, 22, it really paints a picture, doesn't it? His daughter described these grueling 22-hour workdays on tour, going from city to city with almost no sleep. That level of commitment is exactly what makes the family's claims about what happened next so shocking. What the family described is just devastating. They say that after Kulie collapsed from pure exhaustion, he was let go with no severance. It got so bad they had to sell their family home. And then there's this twist. He was supposedly rehired for a single show in Dubai, only to be fired again right on the spot, told he just couldn't physically handle it anymore. So, as you can imagine, this story just exploded online. One side of the argument, captured right here, says this isn't just about one artist. It's a story about the entire music industry and how it treats its workers, especially the behind-the-scenes crew who can be dropped the second their health gives out, no matter how many years they've put in. But then another side of the story popped up, and it's a bit more complicated. This viewpoint points out the cold, hard legal reality of the industry. It stresses that someone like Kulie was likely a freelance contractor, not a salaried employee. And in the US, contractors typically don't get benefits like severance pay, which turns a moral debate into a contractual one. You know, this whole thing didn't just happen out of nowhere. The story about Terry Kulie immediately had people making comparisons to another megatour happening around the same time, where the headlines were telling a very different story. And that comparison put two things side by side. On one hand, you had all these reports about Taylor Swift giving her Array's tour crew these massive, life-changing bonuses. We're talking millions of dollars in total. And on the other hand, you have the Kulie family story, a 20-year veteran allegedly let go with nothing after a health crisis. This contrast really became the center of the whole public debate. And that conversation about labor, it didn't just stay focused on the tour. It quickly snowballed and started to pull in other parts of Beyoncé's massive business empire, especially her hugely popular clothing brand, Ivy Park. So just for some quick context, Ivy Park is Beyoncé's high-end athleisure brand. It's a huge piece of her business portfolio, and she has full ownership of it now. And wow, when you look at the numbers, you can really see where the controversy comes from. Reports started surfacing that alleged garment workers in Sri Lanka making Ivy Park clothes were earning as little as $6.17 a day. When you put that tiny wage next to the $144 price tag for just one pair of leggings, well, the difference is pretty jarring. Now, the brand did respond to this. Their team reportedly came out with a defense, arguing that their wage was actually more than double the official minimum wage in Sri Lanka at the time. Of course, that defense just kicked off a whole new debate about the difference between a minimum wage and a livable one. Okay, so let's switch gears a bit, because the spotlight isn't just on Beyoncé. There's a whole other web of accusations surrounding her husband, Jaÿ-Z, that have been popping up all over social media and even in court documents. All right, this next one is a little wild, so stick with me. It involves the media personality DJ Vlad. He posted these bombshell claims online, saying Jay-Z's company, Roc Nation, paid him and others to basically frame Tory Lanez. But then, almost immediately, he goes on a live stream and says the whole thing was just sarcasm. As you can guess, a lot of people online weren't buying that explanation. And it doesn't stop there. Jaÿ-Z's name also came up in the Jeffrey Epstein court documents. An accuser claimed he was at Epstein's property way back in 1996, along with Harvey Weinstein. On top of all that, even something as small as his recent name change has people online speculating that it might be a move to create some distance between his brand and all this backlash. So, what does this all add up to? How do we connect the dots between a tour manager, factory workers, and all these swirling legal dramas? It all feeds into this bigger, very modern critique of what it means to have billionaire levels of power and wealth. And look, people have pointed out that Beyoncé's path to becoming a billionaire is pretty different from someone like Jeff Bezos, right? It's built on her creative work, her art, her personal brand. But the argument is, once you hit that billionaire status, you start facing the exact same questions about your labor practices, your supply chains, and the ethics of your entire business empire. And this really gets to the core of it. The critique is that, for the super rich, doing the right thing can sometimes feel like an optional act of generosity, like giving a bonus, instead of something that's just a required, built-in part of how they do business. The argument is that being a cultural icon doesn't give your corporation a pass on the ethical standards we'd expect from any other global company. So all of this leaves us with one big question. As our biggest artists become global billionaires running these incredibly complex businesses, what is their real responsibility to the people who actually build their empires? From the loyal stage manager to the person sewing the leggings, it's a huge question, and there's definitely no easy answer.